As I'm sure you noticed, last year was a blinder for game releases. Alan Wake 2, Tears of the Kingdom, Street Fighter 6, the excellence that was Baldur's Gate 3. You're probably thinking there's no chance in hell 2024 can compare. But don't be too hasty. This year has some absolute corkers coming up, and I'm here today to run you through some of the biggest. There's a lot to cover, and I won't be going too in detail with any one title. If you do want to hear more, let me know in the comments and I can do a follow-up. So, without further ado, let's jump straight in with a gem of a franchise that's impossible to dislike. Like a dragon. The series formerly known as Yakuza keeps going from strength to strength, and it's found its niche. It takes the setting of a seedy criminal underbelly and asks, what if we do this and make it a lucid fever dream? Infinite Wealth embraces absurdity. It puts this out there in its reveal trailer, with leading man Ichiban waking up naked in Hawaii, pretty much setting the tone for what's about to go down. For gamers who want something a bit wacky, this will be your new entry point into the bizarre world of Like a Dragon. Returning fans also have a lot to look forward to. Our protagonist will be joined by franchise star Kazuma Kiryu, promising a clashing of worlds that will certainly lead to some excellent capers. If you like role-playing games that will keep you on your toes, look no further. But if that's a bit too rich for your blood, here's something a bit more sensible, whilst also being bonkers in its own special way. Yes, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So back when we got the remake in 2020, there was shock and awe. It was excellent, the gold standard of what a remake could be. But Square Enix were just getting started. Little did we know they had plans to completely revitalise and jumpstart the 20-year-old game and turn it into a trilogy. Rebirth is title number 2, and it looks great. You'll be breaking free from the dingy streets of Midgar and exploring the world at large, trying to piece together just what the heck is going on. Sephiroth is still up to no good, and it's up to Cloud and Co to do the deed once again. Yeah, it's probably going to hurt your brain trying to work out the whats and the whys, but I think that's why we play Final Fantasy, no? If all that isn't quite unhinged enough, then don't worry, I've got just the ticket. 2024 will see the release of this, Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, the original game was a diamond in the rough. It had so much going for it. It was just ludicrous and bizarre and so utterly likeable. But it never seemed to break through into the wider public consciousness. But I'm hoping this will. Imagine Skyrim if it was made by Hideo Kojima. A dragon has eaten your heart, and you have to gather a band of interdimensional oddballs to scour a vast landscape, completing quests and murdering monsters along the way. Maybe you'll get your heart back, maybe you won't. All I can say for sure is there's going to be a lot of collateral damage. Talking of collateral damage, let's talk about Rise of the Rōnin, the newest game from Team Ninja, the studio that brought us Nioh and Ninja Gaiden. Now, this is great for anyone who likes the idea of studying the ancient art of the blade, but also wants a gun for when things get sticky. You'll play as a Rōnin, a masterless warrior who'll be travelling around Japan, cutting a bloody swathe through injustice and social dilemmas. It's set in the 19th century, which was a turbulent time for the island. Civil war, rampant disease, and foreign interests were all plaguing the country. Rather than solve these problems, you choose the violent route and heal the wounds of the nation by cutting and chopping and shooting and maiming. Expect action, blood, guts, and oh, look at that, you get a horse. How lovely. Let's calm down on the ultra-violence for a bit and see what Nintendo are up to. Another Mario game? Not this year, my friends. 2024 is the year of Princess Peach. Showtime puts the damsel in distress in the spotlight, and she'll be facing off against her new arch-nemesis, an evil grape. Yeah, not sure what to make of that, to be honest. In her quest, she'll become a sword fighter, a detective, a world-class baking extraordinaire, even a martial arts master. Now, if only she'd put those skills on show earlier, maybe she wouldn't have spent the last 40 years being kidnapped by Bowser. So there's that to look forward to for all you Switch fans, but what about the rest of you? You want to go back to the violence? Well, what do we have to balance that out? What does that say? Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. Yeah, that'll do it. Warhammer 40k is in a good place. Rogue Trader last year was a solid first step into the CRPG world. Amazon's live-action series is now in motion. And now we've got this. It's a sequel to the 2011 title, where you play as a titular Space Marine. For those out of the loop, think of an army and then condense it down into one person. That's a Space Marine. You'll be fighting a hive mind horde of relentless aliens, the Tyranids, and you'll be proving your loyalty to the Empire by ripping and tearing everything in sight. Ultramarines have quite an arsenal at their disposal, and you'll make use of chainswords, bolt rifles, flamethrowers, plasma guns, and even your own two hands as you violently maim every horrible Xenos in sight. It received a pretty lengthy delay, so here's hoping that time was spent turning everything up to 11 and making it something that's not just a solid game for Warhammer fans, but a killer action title for a wider audience as well. Here's something that I'm going to put a big asterisk onto, because I don't know if it's actually going to be released in 2024. Dune Awakening, an online MMO/survival game set in the world of Dune. You'll be staking your claim on the barren and unforgiving planet of Arrakis. You can band together with other players and form a minor house, working to try and cut off your own piece of the spice pie. It's made by Funcom, who've got genre experience with Conan Exiles, although I do hope this will be something more than just Conan with extra sand. Honestly, it'll either be excellent or it'll miss the mark and exist as a weird, janky outlier for years to come. I'd say keep an eye on it, but don't get your hopes up. Oh, we didn't show the worm! We've got to show the worm! Here's the worm! Oh, what a great worm. Now, another game I've got a few reservations about is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. So first, the good stuff. I was thrilled when this game was first announced in 2019. The original was unique and enthralling, and while it had its fair share of problems, it found a dedicated cult following. The sequel is taking the building blocks and going much bigger. You'll create your own vampire, pick a clan to represent, and take your place in an alternative version of Seattle where vampires, werewolves, and other occult beings are calling the shots. Whether you work to preserve your people's secrecy, or just go all Castlevania on the humans and become a scourge of the night, is entirely up to you. It's an RPG that promises depth, interesting choices, and a world that's surprisingly full of moral dilemmas. For an amoral blood-sucking species, anyway. But now the other side. I said the game was announced in 2019. It was supposed to be released in 2020, but it kept getting pushed back and back and back, and no one seemed to know what was going on. The developer even changed at one point, which is fairly unorthodox. Whether those extra 4 years were spent getting the game to fit its original vision, or just fighting to get it out of development hell, is yet to be seen. I am wary, but cautiously optimistic. Let's stick with horror and talk about the OG of 3D horror games, Alone in the Dark. The genre's really come a long way, hasn't it? But why am I showing you this? Well, because this old-timer is getting a facelift. It's received a complete reimagining in 2024. You'll be looking for clues over the disappearance of your uncle, who of course has gone and vanished himself in the creepiest place you can imagine, Tekken Manor. It's taking the building blocks from the original and mixing in plenty of modern takes. The genre has changed a lot in the past few decades, for the better, and this will be employing all those new features to make this a game that resonates with the audiences of today. Hopefully it can bring it up to the same feeling of dread as the original did, as opposed to many of the other reboot attempts it's had, while still appealing to those who've been getting stuck into those modern Resident Evils. From the big nightmares to little ones. Little Nightmares 3 is something I've got high hopes for. The previous 2 games have been excellent. Though this does have a different developer, I feel like they've got a great playbook to go off and make this something really special. The game's setting is great. It's this hyper-stylized 2.5D world, dripping with character. It's filled with puzzles and platforming challenges, just like the last games. But this time, you can bring a friend. Or play with the AI if you haven't got any, like me. Given how excellent It Takes Two was, I'm hoping Supermassive Games take a lot of notes from that. Because done properly, this could be absolutely excellent. It's too early to even begin speculating what games will be in the conversation for 2024's Game Awards. But I've got a feeling this name will be thrown around quite a lot. Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, a follow-up to the outstanding game from 2017. The original looked and played great, but this time around the developers have a lot more resources at their disposal. It's built in Unreal Engine 5 and it just looks stunning. I mean, come on now, doesn't it? But it's not all eye candy. Packed into these fantastic visuals is a violent and emotional struggle that sees the lead character Senua battle internal monsters, as well as some very literal external ones. If you're looking for a powerful, thought-provoking epic steeped in Norse and Celtic mythology, this is your game. While we're talking about fighting demons, let's talk about some fighting demons. Tekken 8 is on the horizon, and for those who didn't get their fill on Street Fighter last year, get ready to grapple, kick, and juggle your way through your friendship group. The developers are keen to tinker with the franchise formula, making a number of changes to reward more aggressive playstyles. All of you who are put off by slower fighting games filled with blocking and patience and strategy, no more! This is all about being scrappy. Obviously, there's going to be layers of depth here that should hopefully still appeal to the Tekken 7 crew. But I'm thinking these new changes might make this installment appeal to newer players who just want the instant gratification of dispensing some immediate whoop-ass. Sounds really weird for a British person to say, doesn't it? Whoop-ass. Yeah, anyway, let's move on. What's next? 2024 will see the return for the S.T.A.L.K.E.R franchise. Now, this series has always lived on the sidelines, but this time around, developers GSC Game World are promising a full AAA experience. It tells the story of the Exclusion Zone, an area around the Chornobyl nuclear plant, which is a strict no-go zone because of the radiation and the flesh-eating interdimensional horrors. I say no-go, but a few mad individuals do enter the area in search of fame and riches and answers, and lo and behold, you're one of them. It's a blend of FPS, horror, and immersive sim, with a healthy dose of survival thrown in too. You'll stave off hunger, sickness, and radiation in a desperate struggle to stay alive, scouring the land for loot and clues, whilst avoiding the bandits and mutants. Yes, everything in the game is awful and wants you dead, and obviously dying isn't great, so you'll be doing everything in your power to stop that from happening. If the other games in this series are anything to go by, this will be a warped, riveting story that'll make you question and critique your own actions as you cut a bloody path through the Exclusion Zone. What's 2024 got in store for all of you superhero fans? Well, there's this. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. So DC does have some serious video game chops with the Arkham series and Injustice, though things have been a bit hit and miss lately. Let's hope this is a return to form. Set in an open world metropolis, i.e. Superman's stomping ground, players will be able to chop and change between iconic members of the Suicide Squad. Big bad villain Brainiac has invaded the Earth and has brainwashed the Justice League. It's up to you to stop this horrible scheme and free Superman, the Flash, Green Lantern, and Batman. Or failing that, probably just kill them. I like the Suicide Squad. It's a good premise that challenges the norm of your typical spandex fling. But I've got some deep reservations here. The development has been turbulent with delay after delay, and it's packed with alarming features like an always online requirement, a battle pass on launch, and all the makings to shift this AAA game into some live service rubbish. So it might be good, but it could also be a complete disaster. Talking about complete disasters, let's talk about Skull and Bones. Believe it or not, I am actually excited to see this game release. Not so much to play it, more just morbid curiosity. Skull and Bones is the epitome of development hell. We're talking Duke Nukem Forever levels. It's been in development for over a decade. It's been delayed hundreds of thousands of times and changed course more often than a schooner with Jack Sparrow at the helm. But it's finally being released. Mainly because it's being forced to by a Singaporean law, but that's a story for another time. To give you the download, it's an open-world pirate romp where you'll captain your own ship, gather a crew, explore islands and whale on colonial fortresses. For fans of Black Flag, this could be a great game for you, if it turns out not to be a disaster. Though, saying that, they could have just done a reimagined Black Flag, but, make it their own thing. I don't know how it took a decade when they pretty much had a cheat sheet ready and prepared. I'd like to see this all work out, because pirates are fun. But there are just so many red flags all over the place. So that's one to watch out for, either because it'll prove me wrong and be really good, or because it's pretty fun to watch a ship go down. Star Wars Outlaws. This is a childhood dream of many, finally realised. A fully open world and massive Star Wars game that sees you travel from planet to planet and take to the great beyond in your very own ship. But it's none of that Empire versus Rebellion malarkey. No, save that for the films. In Outlaws, we'll be diving into the seedy criminal underbelly of the franchise, adopting the role of a 2-bit thief, K. It takes place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, so there's potential for some familiar faces to appear. There'll be towns to explore, cities to get lost in, open plains to thunder across on a speeder, and a whole load of space to blast rebel scum in. It's nice to see them take a different route rather than just rehashing the same old story between Sith and Jedi. I think this could be quite good, to be honest. Although, one key note, its developers, Massive Entertainment, were also developing Avatar Frontiers of Pandora at the same time, which is another massive open world game. Developing one of these titles is a task. Two at the same time? Nearly impossible. Let's just hope they've not cut too many corners. And finally, we have the game that I have saved till last because I am genuinely really excited about it. This is Avowed, the newest game from Obsidian. It's a first-person, open-world fantasy RPG, to which you might say, well, just like Elder Scrolls? Well, yeah, but while Bethesda has the resources, the scale, and the massive IP, Obsidian has something else. Guts and panache. This looks like it's got so much character. It's set in the same universe as one of their other IPs, Pillars of Eternity, and the gameplay looks dynamic and just great fun. Use magic to freeze your opponents solid and shatter them into a million tiny pieces, or call on the power of nature to ensnare your foes, before finishing them off with a big bonk on the head. The world is vivid, interesting and stylish, and I've no doubt that the writing and story will have that distinctive Obsidian flair. I've got high hopes, and I just think this developer's great. They constantly throw out curveballs. In the last few years, they came out of nowhere with an excellent survival game, and then followed it up with a medieval parchment role-playing puzzle game. They're bonkers, but in completely the right way. I think Avowed will be really very good. And yeah, you can hold me to that. Unless it turns out to be rubbish, in which case, I never said it, just ignore me, it's fine. And there we go, a whole load of big old titles for you to look forward to in 2024. Some of them will be excellent, some of them may crash and burn. Let me know your predictions in the comments section below. And were there any other big old games you've got your eye on? Share them with the class. I'd love to hear what you're excited about. And if all those aren't enough for you, click the link here for my top AA and indie games to look forward to this year. Or if that link hasn't popped up around where I did, then it probably means I'm still making it. Sorry about that. Go click on that like and subscribe button too, and I'll let you know when it's done. See you there.